In the quiet corners of West Africa, especially in countries like Nigeria and Ghana, there's a chilling tale that has haunted students for generations. It's the story of Madame Koi Koi, a ghostly figure whose terrifying footsteps echo through the hallways of schools. The mere mention of her name causes unease in the hearts of children, and those who claim to have heard her steps never forget them. But who was Madame Koi Koi? What led her to become one of the most feared spirits in African folklore? The tale begins at a prestigious boarding school, nestled deep in the heart of Nigeria. It was a place of discipline and strict rules, a school with a reputation for producing some of the brightest students. Among the faculty was a woman named Madame Koi Koi, a teacher who was as beautiful as she was feared. Her skin was fair, her eyes sharp and piercing, and she always wore a perfectly pressed uniform, with a pair of bright red high-heeled shoes that seemed to glint in the sunlight. Her beauty and elegance masked a heart of cruelty. She ruled her classroom with an iron fist, and her students trembled whenever she approached. She had a particular fondness for punishing students for the smallest infractions, from not completing homework on time to speaking out of turn. Her punishments were harsh. She would beat students with a cane or send them to stand in the scorching sun for hours as a form of penance. But it wasn't just her actions that terrified the students. It was the sound of her steps. As she walked down the hallways, her heels would click with a rhythm that seemed to reverberate through the walls. Koi, koi, koi. The sound became synonymous with fear. Despite her cruelty, Madame Koi Koi was a respected figure. She was often seen as a symbol of authority, and no one dared to question her methods. But all of that changed one fateful day. One afternoon, Madame Koi Koi became enraged when a student, Adebayo, failed to complete an assignment. Her anger flared like wildfire, and in a fit of rage, she struck him repeatedly with her cane. The blows were brutal, far more than any student had ever received before. The other students watched in horror as Adebayo cried out in pain. But there was no mercy from Madame Koi Koi. After the punishment, Adebayo collapsed. He was rushed to the school infirmary, but the damage had already been done. His injuries were severe, and despite the best efforts of the staff, he passed away in the night. The school was in shock, and rumors spread like wildfire. Parents became outraged, and an investigation was launched. But before the authorities could act, Madame Koi Koi disappeared without a trace. Some say she fled in disgrace, while others claim she was confronted by an angry mob of parents and students. However, the truth of what happened that day remains a mystery. The one thing everyone agrees on is this: Madame Koi Koi's departure from the school was not the end of her presence, it was just the beginning. It didn't take long for the students to begin noticing strange occurrences. Late at night, when the corridors of the school were silent and the moonlight filtered through the windows, a strange sound would begin to echo in the halls. It was the unmistakable click of high heels, koi, koi, growing louder and louder. The sound would come from nowhere, as if the very walls themselves were haunted by the rhythm of her footsteps. At first, students thought it was just their imagination playing tricks on them. But soon, things became undeniable. Students started seeing strange shadows move in the hallways, glimpses of a woman dressed in red walking past doors, even though there was no one there. Some said they saw her face in the mirrors pale, with a look of cold, vengeful anger. One by one, students started to disappear. First, it was the pranksters who had mocked her during her time at the school. Then, it was the ones who dared to laugh at her ghost stories. One evening, a group of boys were caught making fun of the legend of Madame Koi Koi. They joked that they would ask her out for dinner if they ever met her. They laughed at the thought of a ghost haunting them until that night. The next morning, they were gone. The only thing left behind was a pair of bloody footprints leading into a darkened classroom. No one ever saw them again. As time went on, the stories of Madame Koi Koi spread from one school to another. Each time, the legend grew more vivid, more terrifying. In some versions, Madame Koi Koi's spirit was said to haunt not only schools, but also anyone who had wronged her in life. Some said she was seeking vengeance on the children who mocked her. Others believed she wanted justice for Adebayo's death. Regardless of the reason, she was determined to make sure no one forgot her. In one particularly eerie tale, a student claimed that Madame Koi Koi appeared in their dream. In the dream, she stood in front of them in her red heels, her eyes filled with rage. "You have dishonored me," she said, her voice echoing with fury. The student woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. But when they checked their legs, they found 3 red scratch marks that hadn't been there before. Soon, no student dared to walk alone at night in any school building. The rules became clear. Never walk alone at night. If you hear "koi, koi," don't turn around. It's said that looking into her eyes seals your fate. If you see her shadow in the corner of your eye, run. Don't look back. Never make fun of her legend, as those who did were the first to suffer her wrath. Even today, the legend of Madame Koi Koi persists. In some schools, security guards and janitors claim to hear her footsteps echoing in empty corridors late at night. They report seeing a woman dressed in red walking past locked doors, vanishing before their eyes. Uber drivers in Lagos tell stories of a beautiful woman in red heels who enters their car late at night. She tells them her destination in a soft, sweet voice, but when they reach the address, she disappears without a trace, leaving only the smell of roses behind. Some drivers have claimed to feel a cold breeze wash over them when she enters, and others say their cars suddenly break down after the encounter. Many of the victims never speak of their experiences, but there are rumors of a few survivors who have escaped her grasp only to be left with strange, unexplained marks or bruises on their bodies. Some even claim to have seen her waiting for them in reflections, in mirrors or windows, staring back at them with hollow eyes. To this day, the legend continues to haunt the dreams and waking lives of many. Schools and parents still tell the story of Madame Koi Koi, warning their children never to disrespect the myth. And so the legend lives on, a dark reminder of how one woman's fury, born from cruelty and injustice, has turned her into a vengeful spirit that will stop at nothing until she is remembered. If you ever hear "koi, koi" echoing behind you in the dead of night, don't turn around. You might just become her next victim, because Madame Koi Koi never forgets.